back murderous aura flew slowly to the gate, and everyone still didn't understand what was happening. At the same time the door cover with that black aura flew, and the door slammed shut, and everyone was shocked to seeing this situation.
Round-headed guy and the wire-bearded guy said in panic at the entrance. Is it planning to trap us in?
Suddenly the rough guy shouted, "Get out of the way." Then he held his shield tightly to rush into the door, to put shield corner to trying to open the door with his full strength, causing shield damage as soon as he rushed in the door. The door fully closed, the rough guy's shield got a crack and he was pushed a meter away. He angrily said, "Damn, just what is that monster?"
On the other side the monster smiling, and the aura flowing around him. He looked at everyone at this moment. The voice of Captain Choi said, "A hobgoblin chief priest." He frowned and said, "He's a C-rank rare monster. Monsters that appear with low probability within the gate."
After hearing Captain Choi, the round-head guy and beard guy said in shock, "A rare monster?"
Both the brown-haired guy and rough guy also hear the Captain Choi and said in shock, "It's SC rank as well?"
Jin Tae-kyung, after listening to the captain's Choi, he gasped, his face turned red and thinking, what the hell? Why is there a C-rank monster inside an E-rank gate?
The captain turned to look the other side, and then mentioned, looking at the black evil energy that was about to gradually form a human. It was still making strange sounds. Gradually its feet appeared. After a while of absorbing enough evil energy, the monster's feet appeared more clearly after absorbing all dead body evil black energy. Looking at its huge shape, he complete his form. Captain Choi said, "Another hobgoblin chief warrior. It's a C-rank rare monster as well."
Everyone was stunned. Only a few words appeared in everyone's mind. We're going to die?
The team leader saw that everyone's morale was low and spoke up, "But this doesn't mean this is the end for us." He pulled out his sword and said solemnly, "If we can kill that chief priest first, we'll still have some chance of survival." The teammates on his behind was extremely excited. He glanced behind him and said, "But in order for me to accomplish, warrior leader," he was roaring and approaching Captain Choi said, "You guys have to temporarily hold off the goblin." Hearing that, everyone fell into dead silence. Captain Choi turned his head around and said, "Just hold him back for 5 minutes."
The rough guy raised his hand to stop him and said, "Wait a second, Leader Choi. Do you have any other way?"
Captain Choi, without bothering to answer the question, he rushed towards the monster and unleashed the move, letting the wind accelerate.
Everyone screamed madly, "This bastard!" Jin Tae-kyung's huge backpack was put aside. He looked at it and thought, they say that unlucky bastards will even break their noses when they fall backwards. He was sweating profusely and nervously thinking, I can't believe I'm meeting an intermediate boss. Monsters over $399. Not one, but two as well. The teammates holding shields stood in front, 2 people holding bows stood behind to defend, and Jin Tae-kyung was trembling, holding a spear in the middle. He thought, besides, I thought you guys told me not to fight. You damn said I was just a luggage boy. What can a F rank hunter like me do?
"It's coming." Rough guy pointed. The warrior chief priest rushing towards them, rough guy shouted, "Archer, don't hold back on your mana. Hit it with everything that you've got." Seeing lots of arrows flying towards him, the warrior chief priest immediately swung his sword to send it flying away. Rough guy ordered everyone, extended the distance, and continued shooting. The red-eyed goblin growled menacingly. It bounced up, causing all the surrounding rocks to break it. Screamed and flew towards Jin Tae-kyung group, they all shocking to seeing it. Rough guy tried to calm down and said, "Take cover." And boom, the chief warrior monster straight down to the group of people, everyone flying away, cause of critical hit. The rock piece scattered around kicked the brown-haired guy in the head and stomach. The guy with the beard was hit in the eye and they cried out in pain.
After seeing his teammates in pain, the round-head guy cover himself because he has a shield to protect him from flying rocks. He bent down and turned around to talk to rough guy Hung Min. Sok Ho and Jong Min are both his bad condition.
Hyung Nim, shouted the monster in your behind. And suddenly a booming noise rang out, the blood flowing all around with that hit. After seeing that, Hyung Nim and Jin Tae-kyung turned their attention towards him. Hyung Nim exclaimed, "Damn!" He suddenly named Jin Tae-kyung.
He was startled and replied, "Yes?"
Hyung Nim said and solemnly, "While I keep that thing distracted, take the others and hide."
Jin Tae-kyung tightly held the spear and replied, "Okay." Looking at him, Hyung Nim, confronting the goblin one-on-one, Jin Tae-kyung thought to himself, is he going to be okay by himself?
The goblin growled with angers. Looking at him, Hyung Nim roared and unleashed his power, increasing his strength and strengthening his shield. Hyung Nim muscles gained strength, even the shield became stronger. Hyung Nim put the shield on the ground, then he proactively rushed towards the goblin's super attacking speed. The goblin saw that and also prepared himself. Hyung Nim gritted his teeth, his forehead showing his veins, cause of anger. The goblin moved with that hand holding a mace and hit with full power. Hyung Nim didn't hold powerful attack, he bent down, causing the shield to crumble.
Seeing that Hyung Nim had fallen, Jin Tae-kyung cursed once. Scared images appeared in his head. He shook his head and thought, why do these kinds of things keep happening to me? If this continues, everyone will die again. There were still a few tears in the corner of his eyes, and he glanced towards team leader Choi. He was enthusiastically fighting with the C-rank monster. He thought to himself, it's been more than 5 minutes, damn it. So Jin Tae-kyung slowly held the spear and approached the front. He thought, now it only depends on me. At this moment the goblin was trying to grab Hyung-nim's head. He said, seriously, I have to stop this bastard at all costs, please make it work. Make it. He prepared to launch a one-hit attack. The goblin saw movement and immediately looked at him with sharp eyes. His spear stabbed into the goblins, but the spear was also bent, but he let go of Hyung-nim. The goblin growled. He looked at the spear stabbing his butt. Jin Tae-kyung's eyes were extremely determined. A second later he could only put down his spear and tearfully said, it's really bad. The goblin raised his arm to strike Jin Kyung, who was helplessly crying and kneeling on the ground. Suddenly there was a rang sounds in his head and he quickly opened his eyes. Clang. The system hasn't appeared for a long time now. A notification appears.
Synchronization is complete. Your system has been transferred.
After system synchronization complete, the next second he was holding a spear to block the goblin's stone mace. His inner core is gradually brightening, then it burst into flames. A stream of power spread throughout his inner core. His eyebrows furrowed, his eyes became determined. The goblin raised his stone mace, it swung up and growled terrifyingly. Jin Tae-kyung's whole body is surrounded by a stream aura that flowing on his inner core. His eyes became cold. Then again system notification appeared in front of him.
Synchronization is complete. Your system has been transferred.
After notification he using his QI sense. After having the support system he now saw the goblin level. His level is 45 Hobgoblin Chief Warrior. Jin Tae-kyung laughed loudly and said, interesting, so this is how it's going to be. The goblin screamed again and rushed towards Jin Tae-kyung with his mace for attack. Now that he was possessed he avoided it easily because he was using the Jin family's footwork technique. Seeing that he couldn't beat him, the goblin screamed in anger and using his full force to attack Jin Tae-kyung and crush with his mace. But it's just a flash. Jin Tae-kyung quickly dodged it and become more closer to him. Jin Tae-kyung glanced at it and said coldly, first technique of the Jin family's spear technique. Brutal head of the dragon. He swung the spear and cut off the goblin's arm holding the stone mace. He turned around again from front to back and saw the goblin and using second teaching, whirlwind of the black snake. And cut the stomach with it. The beaten goblin screams in pain. Jin Kyung uses the third technique and fourth technique to strike directly spear towards goblin. Then using fifth form continuous attacks in front of his body, didn't giving him any chance to strike. The goblin screamed in pain. He pushed back for force attack and hit on the rock's walls. Blood also spurted out. He lost his strength and fall down on his knees. Seeing Jin Tae-kyung slowly approach, the goblin groaned in pain. Jin Tae-kyung looked down and said, I guess I don't even have to use my one-strike skill on you. He picked up the spear and stabbed it straight into its throat. After killing it, the ding-ding sound echoed in his head. He looked at the notification, then stroked his chin thinking, I totally forgot about the sound of the system notification, but it's thanks to the system that I was able to defeat this monster.
You have eliminated the chief warrior monster. Your level up.
Suddenly the voice Mr. Jin Tae-kyung approaching. Captain Choi also killed the chief warrior monster black magic user. He looked Jin Tae-kyung, who just defeated the warrior chief. He trembled and said you, with surprised look, and asked, what is your true identity?
After the raid, the people who were in charge of the gates were thrown into an uproad. 2 mid-tier rare monsters? Inside an E-rank gate? Only 4 E-rank hunters stuffed injuries. But thankfully, they weren't in critical condition. Whenever an incident like this occurs, it's required by law that the government compensate any damages to gears, medical bills that had to be paid, and any raid rewards lost. So if you were to combine everything that we earned from this raid, we made quite a profit. After the 4 injured hunters were transported to an ambulance, Leader Choi was escorted to the Civil Service Department in order to give his report. After sitting on a car and thinking a while, then command open character profile. Jin Tae-kyung amazed to looked at his profile showing again in front of him. He said his character profile has changed. The things that affects him on Murim have all disappeared. Then he thinking about his old character profile, Fame 500, son of a noble. Shame of the family. It's all disappeared. Well then again, it's not like I'm the son of a rich noble here, nor am I the sleeping dragon and shit. Then he command open quest menu.
Quest menu appeared. Betrayed, you have found out who the betray was. Regroup with the main forces and alert them of the betrayer. Afterwards, lead your people to victory. Rank, peak, restrictions, only for Jin Tae-kyung. Objective, eliminate the betrayer, incomplete. Emerge victorious, incomplete. Quest reward, enormous amount of experience and fame. Valuable steel box. Quest failure, death.
Jin Tae-kyung frowned looking at that announcement. He remembered that time he silently assessed, was it telling him to return to the Murim? Suddenly realizing something, he's silently sitting in the car. He thought to himself, the system still exists in the real world. That means the Murim world is not a game. Maybe. Suddenly team leader Choi pressed his face against the glass door to observe him. As soon as Jin Tae-kyung looked over, he was startled and said, "Damn it, you scared me." The captain turned around to the other side inside the car. He silently lamented, "What a jerk." When team leader Choi put his head in, he immediately asked what happened.
He leaned back in car seat inside and said, "I gave them quick report on what went down, and they should reach out to me within the next few days. I'm sure you will also be investigated, Mr. Tae-kyung."
Jin Tae-kyung thought to himself, the investigation. I don't want to see them again. Then he said with fearful voice, the thing that I requested earlier.
Captain Choi looked at Jin Tae-kyung. He remembered that time in the cave.
Jin Tae-kyung said, "Would it be possible for you to keep this a secret?"
Leader Choi replied, "Are you asking me to give a false statement?"
Now Jin Tae-kyung thought to himself, to begin with, I don't even know if this system will be permanent or if it's a temporary thing. In situation like this, it's best that nothing gets leaked out to the public.
Captain Choi suddenly looked at his watch and said, "Mr. Jin Tae-kyung."
Jin Tae-kyung replied, "Yes."
Captain Choi showed his watch to Jin Tae-kyung and said, "Take a look."
Jin Tae-kyung, after hearing it, looked at the watch and asked, "It's 2 o'clock.
Captain Choi replied, "It's made from in company using a C-rank magic gem. It's also been enchanted with some defensive magic, so I can use it as a shield during emergency situations."
Jin Tae-kyung nervously said, okay.
Captain Choi started the car and said, "Let's grab some food," and asked, "Do you like premium Korean steak?"
Jin Tae-kyung replied, "I've never really eaten one."
Captain Choi took Jin Tae-kyung to the Korean restaurant. The meat was sizzling and being grilled. The order list is on the table. Captain Choi said, "I told them that I was the one who subjugate them. The chief priest and the chief warrior."
Jin Tae-kyung, who was happily eating meat, replied, "Wow. Thank you. I'm sorry for making such a burdensome request, even though this is our first time meeting each other."
Captain Choi asked then, "Will you join my guild?"
Jin Tae-kyung didn't expect that his mouth was full with food spit out for unexpected request. With surprised expression he asked, "Huh? Me?"
Later the food plates were cleaned. The meat on the grill was also finished. Jin Tae-kyung's place is empty. Captain Choi sitting alone and silently thinking about Jin Tae-kyung. Wind on his hand, while shaking it, he was thinking the Jin Tae-kyung words.
"I have something important I have to take care of right now. Please give me some time to think about this."
He was about to raise his glass of wine to drink. His phone suddenly rang again. After taking the headphones and putting them on, he answered yes. "Did you look into it?"
The other guy replied, "Well, since you personally asked for it, I did look into it. But this person named Jin Tae-kyung, what is it that you want to know?"
Captain Choi replied, "That's what I was curious about and asked you to find out for me. So, do you have anything for me?"
The other guy replied, "Well, he was quite a big case. He first awakened 7 years ago at the age of 20. He was determined to be a F-rank hunter. There's not a lot of information about him during his days as a novice hunter. However, there is one thing that is quite interesting."
Hearing this, his body become more active and give serious look to listen. He said, "What is it?"
The other guy replied, "The Sangdong District Gate incident? He was apparently the sole survivor of that incident. I was quite shocked after hearing that."
Hear that news, he frowned tightly, extremely surprised to know that it was related to Jin Tae-kyung.
The guy on the phone continued talking. After that incident he disappeared for about half a year, and was interrogated by a lot of different inspections. He recently returned back to his guild about a year ago and has been running gates non-stop for that duration. He was fired about 4 days ago.
Leader Choi asked, "What was the reason for his termination?"
The other guy on the phone answered, "Well, they were trying to reorganize their guild. But I doubt a small guild like them can't even afford to do that. I bet he was fired because of that incident. They just let him go after carefully avoiding the eyes of the inspectors. I bet he was a burden to them."
After hearing all of this, Captain Choi asked again, "That's all you have for me?" and put wine on his side on table.
The other guy replied, "Yeah, that's all I could get. Do you want me to send you a copy?"
Captain Choi said, "Send it over immediately. I'll be going now."
The other guy on phone quickly replied, "Hey, wait."
But Captain Choi clicked and turned off the call. His hand on the table, tapping his fingers, looking very tense, remembering the scene where Jin Tae-kyung killed the chief warrior goblin in the cave. He thought Jin Tae-kyung the sole survivor of the gate that appeared in Sangdong District, and he's at least a C-rank hunter. He's standing up carrying the invoice of bills that they eat, but still thinking himself, but Jin Tae-kyung telling me he is supposedly a F-rank hunter. There are only 2 possible choices. He's been hiding his strength, or he's recently had another awakening. While walking, thoughts kept popping into his head. I doubt he had any reason to hide his strength this whole time. So the highest probability is that he's recently had another awakening. He give the bill with payment to a lady on cash counter. But his head still thinking about Jin Tae-kyung. It is possible for someone to go from F rank to AC rank that quickly. Captain Choi helplessly put his hand on his forehead and thought, it's not like we're living a game.
The lady on cash counter said that will be $1.
The sentence interrupted his thoughts, making him look stunned. Captain Choi face looked fearful, and he thought it's feel like I've been possessed by a ghost. He give his card to lady for payment.
The cash counter lady happily asked that will be on one card, right?
On the other side, Jin Tae-kyung rolling his eyes for looking something and saying it's not there. He turned his eyes another direction and looked around once more and saying it's not here either. Looking at the specific area, he said my capsule is gone. Jin Tae-kyung raised his head in tear on his eyes and he screamed looking at the sky saying which idiot took my damn capsule.
Suddenly familiar voice coming from his above. He looked up. It's Sung Jin-ho, angrily shouted with copying Jin Tae-kyung expression, you know I poured my heart and soul into taking care of that thing for 10 years.
Jin Tae-kyung looking above and shouted angrily. Damn, you stop messing around. This is a serious matter.
Sung Jin-ho teased and said oh no, I really do have it.
Jin Tae-kyung screamed and said have what?
Sung Jin-ho just pointed at himself and said that capsule I'm the one who picked it up.
Hearing this, Jin Tae-kyung life seemed to bloom. He shyly said I love you, so the two of them argued back at the fourth floor of the room.
Sung Jin-ho said, I'll be selling that VR game capsule for $100.
Jin Tae-kyung surprisingly said what? Are you trying to scam me right now?
Sung Jin-ho replied I guess you don't want it then.
After a while of struggle he finally got the device back. Jin Tae-kyung was lying on the bed staring at something. That's Captain Choi's business card. Looking at it he said I guess if you live long enough you experience quite a lot of things. He crossed his legs to look at it and thought to himself it feels like it was just yesterday that I was wandering around looking at flyers and pamphlets for work. I can't believe I'm getting recognized and scouted like this. He remembered his conversation with Captain Choi at the restaurant.
He offered a salary $100,000. As for the rest of your wage, we'll pay you the same amount we pay our C-rank hunters. So what do you think?
Jin Tae-kyung that time didn't think too much, that was close. He almost gave in back then. Now remembering that high salary makes him excited under normal circumstances, he would have signed, stamped, sealed, and even left a kiss mark that contact paper. But still suddenly he remembered, what if the system disappeared tomorrow? That fear coming on his mind, that's like eating too much food and getting a stomachache from it. That point he will be killed by the captain and say oh you fake bastard. Give me my money back. At an early age, I realized that this world isn't a forgiving place. But with the strength that I have right now. The system. What if I'm able to use it permanently? After thinking about it, Jin Tae-kyung silent again. He held his head not knowing what to think anymore. Suddenly he trying to stand up and said ah damn I can't hold back myself anymore. He quickly rushed out of the room. Leaving behind that capsule. He started running across the street. While running he thought even though I've worked really hard for the past 7 years, I could never escape that label of being an F-rank hunter. Running more faster he thought to himself these shackles that have been tormenting for so long. I really want to get rid of them as soon as I can. His look determined again thought to himself hunter ranking re-evaluation. Going to the side of the road he quickly called a taxi. The driver stopped and said,
Welcome, where should I take you?
Jin Tae-kyung replied please take me to the Hunters Association at the Bucheon district. Then he whispered let's give this a shot.
Driver said sir, you're in a taxi that operates within Seoul Metro region.
Jin Tae-kyung said ah. Okay.
The huge building is a Hunter Association headquarters. Inside there was a happy voice here out. D rank? As expected of my son Tilda, you will be the one to finally lead our future.
His son scratched his head and said haha, well I'm not an official hunter just yet. I still have to receive training, plus I'll have to look for a guild as well.
His father said, don't worry about that. Your father had already made a spot for you.
Oh, really? I thought you said you didn't have any room left at your guild.
His father laughed and said, I can always find a way. Then he thinking himself, I was able to finally get rid of all those low-ranking hunters that were an eyesore for many years. Then he said to his son, in any case, make sure to rest up and let's head to work together next.
Hearing the words of his father he thought himself using his phone. Awesome, I'll celebrate at the club tonight, Tilda.
At that moment everyone ran away whispering and gossiping. There was something big going on in the evaluation room. It seemed like this C-rank hunter had made her appearance. To hearing that the man sitting and whispering with his two friends, he said AC rank. That's not bad, but that shouldn't be that big of a deal, right?
To hearing their convenience on the other side, father taking his son with him and thinking, oh, AC rank. Maybe I should get my hands on this person.
The girl on the other side said to his friend who is sitting with cup of tea, that's true, but his ability to control mana above an A rank.
The man with his son after hearing that become shocked and said what?
The elevator on the 3rd floor. Then it's going down. Everyone was whispering and gossiping. Pointed elevator is coming down. He's going to be here soon.
Kim Sang-shik stared at the elevator with great anticipation, thinking, I don't know where the guy suddenly came from, but this is a big opportunity for me. He looked around at everyone and thought, let's see if there are any big guilds around, but nope. It seems like they haven't appeared yet. Looking at the elevator down to the second floor, he thought to himself, since my guild master told me to recruit this person without worrying about the cost, this is the perfect opportunity. I'll offer twice the amount of anyone else. He was about to pull out his business card. His eyes were determined. A recently awakened person is an easy catch. If I can successfully recruit this person into our guild, I can probably promote myself to become a vice guild master. The elevator stopped on the first floor. Everyone wanted to get in first. The Kim Sang-shik said, hey, stop pushing. The elevator door opens. Kim Sang-shik bent his body 90 degrees, then held out his business card with both hands and said, hello. Nice to meet you. I am the team captain of the Sopung Guild, Kim Sang-shik. He shouted loudly. Our Sopung Guild is a guild filled with many traditionals and has a renowned guild in the Bashan region for many.
A familiar voice rang out. This is my first time hearing the Sopung Guild is a renowned guild.
Kim Sang-shik, after listening, he slowly raised his head and said, excuse me? After watching the person in front of him, his eyes were open with unbelievable expression and he said with shaking voice, it you?
Jin Tae-kyung smirked at him. He said coldly, it's been a while. Mr. Kim Sang-shik. Name, King Sang-shik. Former work boss. He was one of the 3D rank hunters in the guild, and he only cared about protecting his own life inside the gate. He was your typical petty man who would bully the weak. Since he was the team captain, he would always pick on the F-rank hunters. And out of the F-rank hunters, he hated me the most. 2 years ago, after the incident that happened in Sangdong district, he would talk behind my back while pretending to worry about me. The one who advised the guild master to fire me was none other than him. And this bastard was also the one who personally notified me of my dismissal.
He said with his shaking hands, why the hell are you there?
Jin Tae-kyung smirked, then said, good question. I wonder why I am here.
On the other side, other people also want Jin Tae-kyung to join them. One of them said with the Sangdong Guild, we promise to give you anything that you want.
Mr. Awakened, we're the Invincible Guild.
Mr. Awakened, please join our guild.
Jin Tae-kyung waved his hand and said, there's too many people here. I'm heading out.
Kim Sang-shik still can't believe in his eyes, his body shaking with nervousness, and says, then are you the one that's awakened?
Jin Tae-kyung was surrounded by many people. Everyone wanted him to join our guild, and Kim Sang-shik sat down on the ground and nervously looking at Jin Tae-kyung being surrounded by everyone, and he was happily thinking to himself, I feel so relieved. I feel like 10 years worth of shit got flushed out of me. Is this what they call a shitgasm?
A girl soared up in front of him and said, Mr. Awakened, I'm from the Soul Guild. If there is anything that you want, please don't hesitate to ask.
Unconditionally, he took her business card and said, thank you. I'll contact you guys later. I'm a bit busy right now.
She feels happy to hear that and said with excitement, really? Then we shall look forward to hearing more from you.
Everyone said please contact our guild too.
Jin Tae-kyung thought to himself with smile, of course I'm not calling you guys back.
Everyone behind him kept saying he must contact us.
After leaving the building, he approached the trash can, then he dumped all the business cards into the trash. After he finished throwing it away, he wiped his hands and said, even though a C-rank hunter is a mid-tier rank, there shouldn't be this many people around. I guess I was an unusual case or something. While smiling, he said, but this is only just the beginning. As long as the system exists, I can continue to grow stronger. And
at this time someone called his name, Mr. Jin Tae-kyung. After looking behind it, Kim Sang-shik sprinted and said, Mr. Jin Tae-kyung, wait. After reaching near to Jin Tae-kyung again, he said, Mr. Jin Tae-kyung, please wait a second. Kim Sang-shik breathed heavily.
Jin Tae-kyung asked, what do you want? In his mind he thought, since when did this damn guy call me Mr. Tae-kyung? You were calling me you bastard and other vile names up until a few days ago.
Kim Sang-shik sweat dropped looking at him and said, it seems I have made a grave mistake. Please forgive me. I'll take full responsibility over everything. So just like business, let bygone be bygones, and I hope you'll be able to move on.
Jin Tae-kyung asked, what business?
Kim Sang-shik replied, I'm sure you're already aware of it. If you weren't accepted by a big guild, that's pretty much where your career as a hunter ends.
Jin Tae-kyung said, of course I do. But I also know that if you're at least a C rank, the big guilds will try to recruit you. Suddenly he heard the voice and didn't says anything, and looking at the road, it's Taxi coming towards him.
Kim Sang-shik still kept talking, no, I'm just telling you to be logical. There's nothing for you to lose. Besides, there's a lot of C-rank hunters around these days. So you won't be considered that special. He quickly comes on his front trying to stop him and said, however, if you're with us, we will do whatever we can in order to assist you. Hell, we'll even give you anything that you want. I've gotten permission from the guild master himself, so everything will be fine.
Looking at his scared, sweaty face, he thought to himself, he looked like he's panicking. Jin Tae-kyung walked over to open the car door and thought to himself, then again, the F-rank hunter he told to get rid of has reawakened into a C-rank hunter. He laughed maniacally and thought if the guild master of the Sopum Guild hears about that news, of course he'll be in a lot of trouble.
Kim Sang-shik blocked the door and said, please think hard about this. Why don't we head over to a nice cafe and have a drink? The guild master is coming here as well.
Jin Tae-kyung said coldly, Mr. Kim Sang-shik. He threatened and said, if you really want to recruit me, then make sure to tell the guild master this.
Kim Sang-shik said in fear, excuse me. He doesn't understand what Jin Tae-kyung's saying.
He coldly pointed at him and said, there is one person I don't damn want to see. So if he can get rid of that one person, I can think about it.
Kim Sang-shik trembled and cried out. He didn't expect that to hear it. A second later he angrily raised his fist and shouted at Jin Tae-kyung, you know what? I've had enough of this, damn. After all that I've done for you, to think you bastard would continue to look down on me.
He noticed the moment and glanced at the Kim Sang-shik. The sound of punching each other rang out. When he was done he slammed the car door and left, getting into the car. He leaned against the seat, he clasped his hands over his forehead. Inside, Jin Tae-kyung thought to himself, this is fine. It's over now, then said to the taxi driver, take me to the Hope Guild headquarters in Songne district.
Taxi drive after hearing Jin Tae-kyung remember and said, oh ho. It's the young man from last night. I thought I told you I only operate in the Seoul metro area.
He got out of the car, closed the door and thought to himself, goddamn Seoul metro taxis. Why do you keep turning back here in this area? Kim Sang-shik after beaten bruising next to the tree. On the other side the forest surrounding is gloomy. It's deeply and with darkness full of mystery. The teleportation gate appeared there. In front of the gate the two-person is standing with fully loaded arm. It's Jin Tae-kyung and Captain Choi are looking around. Jin Tae-kyung bit his lip in fear and thought, I ended up coming in the end. A few hours before.
Captain Choi
when he was in his
said,
room he was doing meditation to increase his QI and system notification.
Then
Jin Tae-kyung looked at Captain Choi and wondered if it means he's at least a B rank or even higher. Jin closed his eyes after
I was a bit caught off guard last
and
time.
thought it's relief that
But I guess I'll be able to see just how strong he is
A
now.
lot of unexpected things happened yesterday. When he received the money transfer notice, the Peace Guild deposit online $10,300,000. He happily went to the supermarket to buy beef and there was also a cart of meat. After that he and Sung Jin Ho ate and drank all day because I was so excited, so I ended up going all out. The system notification again sound ding out.
QI meditation has been completed. A small amount of turbid QI has been dispelled.
After reading notification, he opened his eyes with relief. He rubbed his full stomach and said, but why did he have so little energy coming out, and it was also stuffy? He looked at his hand, then frowned and said it's a lot different from when he was in Murim world because of environmental pollution in this world. At that moment the phone on his desk rang out. Jin Tae-kyung holding his phone and saw that message. The message written, do you have time today? After thinking for a while, he was finally at the coffee shop, a cup of coffee on the table. Jin Tae-kyung and Captain Choi sat on chairs facing each other. He scratched his face a little shyly and said, I'm sorry I heard what you said, but it's a bit awkward for me to join the guild immediately.
Captain Choi put his hand in his pocket and said, I guess it can't be helped. He pushed the letter in front of him and said, this is my second offer.
Jin Tae-kyung seemed very surprised. After holding the letter and opening it, he read the content in it and said, a temporary contact. Are you asking me to become a mercenary?
Captain Choi said with serious look, it's not an official contract. The conditions of this contract is similar to that of a B-rank hunter. You can also decide on the length of your contract as well.
Jin Tae-kyung looking at the information, he did not answer anything.
Captain Choi continued and asked, will you really refuse this as well?
He silently thought if conditions were like this. Then he said, but, making Captain Choi look at him. Jin Tae-kyung asked, why are you going this far for someone like me?
Captain Choi did not hide it, and quickly answered, because I trust myself.
Jin Tae-kyung didn't understand it.
Captain Choi explained that I trust my intuition and ability to determine the value of a person. That is why I really want someone like you in my guild. Jin Tae-kyung didn't say anything. Captain Choi said, so, will you sign the contract? Jin Tae-kyung with nervousness nodded. Captain Choi said, very well. Please write down the hours that you want.
Jin Tae-kyung said, yes, sir. And quickly hold the pen and writing down and thinking 7 days. A week should be enough for me to see if the system is a temporary thing or not. After writing it, Jin Tae-kyung handed over the contract and said, all right, I'll be in your care from now on.
Captain Choi replied, my pleasure.
He stood up and thought to himself, finally, taking the first step as a C rank hunter. Then he smiled and asked, should I show up to work tomorrow?
Captain Choi replied, no. Jin Tae-kyung looked surprised. Captain Choi pointed his finger to his watch and said, we start now.
In the present time. Jin Tae-kyung thought, so this is a D rank gate.
Captain Choi said, quite big, right?
Jin Tae-kyung quickly answered, yeah. It's pretty big.
He adjusted his gloves and said a gate of this size is pretty average. B-rank gates are when we really need to hire a guide. He took out the map and looked at it while saying thankfully we were given this map when we bought the rights to this gate, so we shouldn't worry about getting lost.
Jin Tae-kyung replied, that's good to hear. He scratched his head and nervously asked, but what do you mean by buying the rights to this place?
Captain Choi didn't look at him and said it's just like what it sounds. This gate is now mine. Captain Choi pointed in one direction and said in other words, I have sole ownership over this gate. And said let's go this way.
To hearing that, Jig Tae-kyung shocked and thought to himself, he has sole ownership over a gate? In South Korea, the gates are the property of the nation. Since these gates have the ability to provide unlimited amounts of energy from magic gems. Gates are pretty much considered the same as a diamond mine. So you're telling me he was able to have all of that for himself? I know he was the son of rich family, but I don't think he would be this well off.
Captain Choi walked forward and said let's get going.
Looking at his halo, Jin Tae-kyung covered his eyes and said, what a glorious halo. And thought, Leader Choi, just who are you?
A lizard is crawling. Then, he was startled when Captain Choi foot on him. Captain Choi said, while walking, the monsters that appear in this gate are the swamp lizardmen. They are a large tribe that break off into smaller militaristic force. Since we're at the entrance, we'll start to see the smaller and weaker forces first. They're usually in a group of 20, so let's hurry and kill them and move on.
Jin Tae-kyung listening Captain Choi carefully, and thought, I knew he's rich and all, but isn't he looking down on a D-rank gate a little too much? The swamp lizardmen aren't known to be weak monsters. Although I've never seen one myself. Does that mean he's pretty confident in his own abilities? Few hours before, Jin Tae-kyung shocked to hearing that only the two of us? Then I'm withdrawing.
Captain Choi replied, I am completely aware of what you are feeling. Captain Choi said coldly, however, let me say one thing before you leave. I am also a reawakened hunter.
Jin Tae-kyung, after hearing that, stopped and turned around with surprised look and asked, reawakened? I thought you were a C-rank hunters.
Captain Choi frowned and said C-rank was my old rank. Given in the first measurement and a burst of aura, he said, I received my reawakening after that.
Then Jin Tae-kyung looked at Captain Choi and wondered, it means he's at least a B rank or even higher. I was a bit caught off guard last time. But I guess I'll be able to see just how strong he is now. He was so confident, then he activated his QI sense.
Captain Choi remembered said also. The swamp lizardmen usually use a harpoon as their weapon.
The harpoon stuck close to his leg, but luckily he avoided it in time. He shouted and asked, what is this?
Captain Choi looked at him and said, so please be careful.
Strange foot stepped forward on a rock. Numbers of monsters from level 40s appeared. They roared in anger because someone entering on their territory. Jin Tae-kyung looked and said, they're here. Multiple harpoon flew towards the two of them. Jin Tae-kyung held spears to send them flying. Then a monster rushed towards him with full speed carrying a weapon. While the two, Jin Tae-kyung and Captain Choi, stood motionless looking at it. Jin Tae-kyung glanced at Captain Choi and said, it must not be scared since it's attacking us alone.
Captain Choi replied, that's the lizardmen's characteristics. They're rash creatures that prefer taking fights head-on.
Jin Tae-kyung replied, and in his mind he was thinking, should I just stay behind him in order to not get in this way? The monster was rushing towards Captain Choi, then it suddenly turned his direction towards Jin Tae-kyung. He quickly dodged to the left. He jumped 2 steps away, then looked at the monster and said, what's the hell? What's wrong with this one? Why is this damn attacking only me?
Captain Choi stood aside and seriously explained it was because of your gear.
He quickly said, my gear? What does that have to do with anything? So he looked down at his armor. The system displayed the information.
Lizardmen massacre harpoon, type weapon. Rank, first rate. Upon successful attack, there is a high chance of status effect hemorrhage to occur. Lizardmen hunting leather set. Made from the hides of the lizardmen. Upon wearing the full set, scale armor shall activate.
He helplessly thought, shit, look at the names. If I were a lizard man, I would also be angry. No wonder I was the only one being targeted. While the monster was madly rushing towards him, he bent down to avoid the weapon, which even skewed its body, and put his spears to monster chest. Then he thought to himself, if that's the case, then I'm the only one being continuously attacked? Suddenly he looked at Captain Choi and thought, wait, hold a second. He killed the lizard man and angrily shouted, did you do this on purpose?
Captain Choi asked, what do you mean?
Multiple lizardmen coming towards Jin Tae-kyung. He again angrily shouted, you were planning to kill these guys while I kept them distracted. That was your plan all along.
First, Captain Choi didn't say anything. Then he raised one finger and said first, when he was in the equipment room, he let him choose his own gear, and that equipment was chosen by Jin Tae-kyung himself. Captain Choi raised one more finger and said second, regardless of what happened, I will not be making a single move during this raid. So please don't misunderstand.
Jin Tae-kyung thought to himself, what the hell are you talking? He didn't expect to hear that. Jin Tae-kyung said, so basically, you want me to fight by myself?
Captain Choi replied yes.
Jin Tae-kyung asked again, and you're going to stand over there with your arms crossed the entire time?
Captain Choi replied, I'll stop crossing my arms.
Jin Tae-kyung angrily abused him.
Captain Choi said, look at your behind.
On his behind, the harpoon of the monsters. Jin Tae-kyung used his spear to block the monster weapon. Multiple lizardmen attacking him and rushing towards him. He quickly asked, can you at least tell me the reason as to why you're doing? After asking, he looked at the team leader but couldn't see anyone there. That make him shocked.
As for team leader Choi, he was sitting perched on the tree and cheering and saying fight.
Looking at him like this, he thought angrily that guy is a completely psycho. At this moment, two monsters scream, bared their sharp teeth and rushed towards him. He noticed quickly. He quickly grabbed his spear and swung it to block. His face was red with anger and he gritted his teeth and said, but these damn lizards are pissing me off. His whole body radiated murderous aura towards the monsters and said, Jin family's spear technique, first teaching, thrust of the lone dragon. After that attack, then the monster blood spurted out in the air. The ding-ding system notification rang again.
Due to the effects applied by the Lizardman hunting leather set, you have dealt an additional 10% damage. Due to the effects applied by the Lizardman massacre harpoon, you've dealt an additional 20% damage. You have single-handedly taken care of the lizardmen in the surrounding area. Make sure to stay on guard, as these monsters will not stop to fulfill their vengeance.
After taking that attack, monster's eyes opened wide and stared at him. Even making a cry, then its eyes gradually closing slowly, then it fell to the ground, a hole in its stomach. After killing them all, he gasped for breath and the system rang out a notification.
You have eliminated level 40 swamp lizard men. You're level up. You're level up.
Seeing the captain's feet approaching him made him angry. Jin Tae-kyung pointed at him and said, what the hell was that?
At the same time, Captain Choi bent down and said, I apologize.
Hearing that sentence, Jin Tae-kyung suddenly froze.
Captain Choi still bowed his head and said, I need to confirm your skills. I need to know how you moved and how many opponents you can take on. And I also need to figure out how far I can take you with me.
Jin Tae-kyung waved his hand and said, even still. You shouldn't have just left me alone to fight all of these monsters.
Captain Choi replied with serious look, I was confident that you would be able to take care of them on your own. But I never expected for you to take care of them without suffering a single scratch.
To hear that, Jin Tae-kyung's expression changed. So he blushed and pointed at Captain Choi and said, well, you should have told me your plans beforehand. What would have happened if I wasn't as strong as you thought?
Captain Choi, looking at him smirking, didn't say anything.
He pretended to cough and asked, so? What's your verdict?
Captain Choi took something out of his pocket and said, I'm not sure.
Jin Tae-kyung replied, what?
Captain Choi continued, that's why. He popped the stopper off the bottle. Jin Tae-kyung looking at it with confused expression. The red air flew high, making him Jin Tae-kyung startled. The red gas slowly spread everywhere. When red gas scattered everywhere.
While looking at it, Jin Tae-kyung asked, what is that?
Captain Choi replied, a pheromone.
Jin Tae-kyung sniffed and asked, pheromones? Like a perfume?
Captain Choi replied, something like that. These pheromones were harvested from the female lizard man.
To hearing that, Jin Tae-kyung glanced at him. He came closer and said, then. The immediately after that, multiple heavy voice coming out, making two of them to look over there.
Captain Choi smiles and said, the effects are quite strong.
Jin Tae-kyung looked at him with hateful eyes and then angrily abused him on his mind. The group of monsters rushed out from the forest like a flood.
Captain Choi with relaxed mood asked, do you think you can take them on?
Jin Tae-kyung picked up his spear and with anger said, if I told you that I can't, will you help me out?
Looking at the monsters rushing out like crazy, Captain Choi said no.
To hear that, Jin Tae-kyung become more angrily, suddenly hear the roar. It's a giant lizard man also appeared. The system notification ding out.
Level 52 Chief Lizardman has appeared. Skill battle cry is being used.
Jin Tae-kyung was so scared that he was sweating.
Then behind him, Captain Choi whispered, you could always retreat.
To hearing those words, Jin Tae-kyung hold himself and after a few minutes later his feet stepped forward.
Captain Choi suddenly observed his moments going forward.
Encouraging himself and stepped forward and said, there's no need for me to do that. Multiple monsters and chief-level monsters rushed towards him with full speed. Jin Tae-kyung calmly gave orders to the system and opened the status window. The system displays the character profile, pretending to be the level 40 Jin Tae-kyung. First-rate warrior. Then he looked at his available points, it's 100, he commands system to put 30 points into strength and 30 into stamina. And put 40 points into agility. System notified available points become 0. The powers crept into his body, he screamed extremely uncomfortable. After absorbing all the power into his body, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, yes, this is it. The chief warrior monster roared in front of him. Jin Tae-kyung's eyes narrowed, then he coldly said, one strike. A great power appeared, the light shot straight towards, hitting all the monsters. The attack also hit the chief warrior that make him screamed in fear, blood splashing out of its body. Then there was a forceful whirlwind that killed every one of monsters and critical hit straight into them. They had no time to react.
Looking at this scene, Captain Choi gasped in surprise, looking at the majestic scene in front of him. He thought to himself, what is this? How can a recently reawakened C-rank hunter do something like this? With just one move, Jin Taekyung destroyed all the monsters. This scene of destruction made him think. Captain Choi remembered that day when we went to the E-rank. The rare master he took down required the power of 2 C-rank hunters. But the strength he is now. You're telling me he's supposed to be a C-rank hunter? What a joke. Captain Choi crossed his arms and thought, I went on this 2-man raid because I wanted to see his limits, but now I'm even more confused than before. I guess we'll have to go to a C-rank 8 next time. Suddenly, he was stunned and thought, wait a minute, it's possible that he's stronger than me.
Suddenly there was a scream echoing, oh no. The teleportation portal appeared and Jin Taekyung collapsed and cried, touching the dead animal's body and screaming, not like this. I damaged an expensive piece of leather.
Leaving the captain speechless, he thought, nah, that shouldn't be the case. No, I refuse to believe that. Then Captain Choi spoke up and said, alright, let's leave.
Jin Taekyung still sitting that same place and crying with angers and saying, why did I have to go this far? My precious leather. It's already night. Outside the gate the crescent moon also appeared. They both take off their armors.
Deep voice said, good work, young master.
Captain Choi changed his shirt and replied, you also did well, Mr. Butler.
Jin Taekyung still removing his armor and thinking to himself, he has a personal butler? The only times I've seen a butler was at church.
Captain Choi has buttoned up his shirt and said, thank you for your work today, Mr. Taekyung.
He looked over and said, what time should I come tomorrow?
Tomorrow? Captain Choi looked at him and replied, did you think we were going to work on the weekend?
Jin Taekyung asked dumbly, isn't that normal?
Captain Choi shocked to hear that, looking at him with eyes of disbelief. Butler Kim put on a jacket for him. Captain Choi said the purpose of the weekend is to rest. It's required by law that hunters do this. Did your previous guild force you to work on weekends as well?
Jin Taekyung replied, oh, come on. He sighed and said calmly, what kind of a mid-tier guild follows that rule? They let us go on these raids by adding more to our wage. And since we don't want these raids to be left on our records, we're usually paid with cash. It's not like gates disappear during the weekends as well.
Captain Choi replied contemptuously, now you're a C-rank hunter. There's no need for you to live your life like that.
He opened and closed his eyes with nervousness and said, ah. But, in his head he thought to himself, he doesn't know when the system will disappear, so it's because of the feeling of insecurity. Then he scratched his head and shyly said, I just thought that I'll need to take full advantage of my newly found powers.
Captain Choi opened the car door and replied, you're only going to tire yourself out. Please think about your family.
Hearing those words, family? He suddenly stopped and thought about his family, that he only been able to talk to them over the phone. He haven't had the chance to visit them. Has it been 2 months? No, if I include my time in the Murim world, it's been about 3 months already.
Captain Choi just pointed at him and said, in any case, our guild upholds the hunter's law. It's also stated in your temporary contact. So don't do anything else but rest during this weekend. Otherwise, you'll be breaking your contract.
Jin Taekyung replied, ah. Yes, sir. Looking at the team leader, he silently thought, but this guy, Leader Choi, a person should rest when told to do so. Since he's so adamant about rest, I guess he's a decent. Suddenly he remembered when he was in the gate, he had to fight those scary monsters alone. He thought to himself. Nope. He's evil. He made me run 3 C-rank gates in one day. There's no way he's a decent guy. Now looking at Leader Choi standing in front of him, he shuddered and thought, the shit he made me go though for the past 4 days is enough to piss me off again.
Butler Kim bowed his head slightly and said, we're ready to depart, young master.
Jin Taekyung still looking at Captain Choi with hateful eyes and thinking himself, it's obvious that he's making me rest during the weekend because he wants to abuse me again next week. I feel bad for the butler as well. He's unable to depart even though it's pretty late.
Captain Choi asked the butler, did you bring it?
Butler Kim, holding a break case, replied, yes, it's right here.
Captain Choi said, give him that break case.
Butler Kim said to Jin Taekyung, take this, Mr. Hunter.
Jin Taekyung just noticed the briefcase. Soon as he held it, his hand felt heavy. Jin Taekyung opened his eyes in surprise and asked, is this?
Captain Choi glanced at him and calmly said, your weekly payment.
So he immediately held the briefcase of money in his arms and said, I would get paid on Sunday. How much is this?
Captain Choi climbed into the car and said, I put in a little bit more than what the contract stated. I've included the total balance in there, so make sure to check it for yourself. I'll be leaving now.
Butler Kim bowed politely and said, we'll see you next time, Mr. Hunter.
Jin Taekyung watched Captain Choi car leave. He lowered his head to look at the suitcase and fell silent. He suspiciously looked around to see if anyone was there. After returning home, he gently put down his suitcase of money. Then Jin Taekyung gently rotated the password that Captain Choi said. A glimmer of light slowly came out from inside the suitcase. After opening it all, he looked at it in shock and then gasped. He couldn't help but step back and look at the pile of money in the suitcase and shouted, "How much is this?" He happily counted 1, 2, 3, then looked at the paper. Inside, he quickly raised it to read, "That's right, the payment slip." Jin Tae-kyung looked back at the suitcase and said the payment slip said $30,000. But what is this? I can tell that this is much more than that. He slid down the payment slip, stared at it, and said $270 million bonus. He gasped in surprise. Jin Tae-kyung remembered Captain Choi. Careful words, "I was prepared a little more than the contract." He was extremely shocked now in his heart. Captain Choi is a saint. His eyes sparkled and he held a pile of money in his heart, thinking, "What a wonderful person. I will dedicate my whole body to your guild." A moment later, he appeared at house number 1201. Entered the password to enter the house. A beep sounded. Then Jin Tae-kyung slowly opened the door. His mother and sister watching the main door to who was coming inside.
His mother happily called son.
Jin Tae-kyung was very stunned when he heard those words. He immediately smiled with an extremely happy face and replied, "I'm home, mother." After entering the house and talking for a while, the whole family echoed with happy laughter. His mother and sister looked at the money he brought home and were both happy and shocked. Then Jin Tae-kyung pulled out a C-rank card to show off. His sister's eyes sparkled, her body trembled with joy. So she immediately dragged her mother to the shopping center to buy a bunch of things, and Jin Tae-kyung holding those things and feeling tired and was out of breath. Then the next day he took his mother and sister to eat at a luxury restaurant. His mothers feel very happy and looked beautiful. The city full with light and darkness. The unclear sounds echoed, the sound become more louder and annoying than the sound clearer, calling Kyung. Tae-kyung.
Her sister screamed, startling him awake. Jin Tae-kyung.
The system to notify sleep mode has ended.
He gasped for air, his face pale. His sister took one look and said, "Were you having a nightmare? Why are you screaming in your sleep?"
Jin Tae-kyung awake up and thought to himself, nightmare? Ah. It was a dream. But what I was even dreaming about? His whole body was covered in sweat. He held his head and thought, I can't remember. What's with this shitty feeling? Usually when I sleep, the system does a good job adjusting my body's condition. But this is the first time I'm experiencing something like this. My head hurts.
His sister, feeling worried, and asked, "Did something bad happen to you?"
He looked up and said, "Nah, it's nothing like that."
His sister said, "If something did happen, let me know. Stop shouldering all of the burden by yourself. Even mom is worried about you."
He teasingly said, "Yes, ma'am."
She replied angrily, "I'm not joking."
Jin Tae-kyung smiled and said, "No, seriously. I've pretty much got all of our living expenses covered, so what's there for me to worry about? Ah, wait. I do have one thing I'm worried about. How are we going to spend all of our money from now on? So yeah. Jokes aside, there's no need for you to worry about me. Just focus on your studies."
To hearing that, she said, "You're bluffing."
Jin Tae-kyung asked, "Bluffing? Do I have to show you my money bag again?"
She turned around quickly and said, "I'm doing fine as well, so you don't have to worry about me." Suddenly she stopped and said, "Ah, right," then looked at his brother and said, "Who is Jin Tae-kyung?"
Soon as he heard this name, he suddenly frozen. The girl looked at him with confused expression. Jin Tae-kyung didn't understand what to say. After weekend end, he returned back and fighting a monster. When he was fighting, the monster struck with full force and Jin Tae-kyung got cuts on his arm, causing it to bleed on his arm. He quickly raised his spear to fight back. He held his position and using his skills to give critical hits straight to the monster. The system notification appeared.
You have eliminated level 55 Chief Lizard Man.
Leader Choi observing him that time, when he finished to kill the monster. Captain Choi walked away from the tree and said 3 times.
Jin Tae-kyung gasped and asked, "What?"
Captain Choi pointed his finger and said, "That's the amount of times you've gotten hurt today."
Jin Tae-kyung looked at the wound on his arm and said, "It's fine. I can easily take care of this by drinking a low-rank potion and—"
Captain Choi interrupted and quickly said, "No, it's not fine. This is the same gate as the one we ran last time. You don't suffer as since injured back then. That means there's only one possible explanation for this." After giving him seriously looked and said, "Mr. Jin Tae-kyung, is there something bothering you?"
3 days later. He once again cuts off the head of another monster. But several more wounds appeared on his body and he's fell to the ground unable to breathe.
Leader Choi stood to the side watching. He seriously criticized this situation. "This isn't going to work. I'll contact you later. You can go home for today."
Night fell. At this time a bus passed by. Jin Tae-kyung was sitting in a corner of the bus looking out. He fell into thought, what's wrong with me? The system hasn't disappeared and I still have a shit ton of money to go around. Looking at himself reflected in the bus glass, he frowned and thought, all that's left for me is to just focus on my duties as a C-rank hunter. Back then he remembers the conversation between his sister, who asked, "Who's Jin Tae-kyung?" That time he just frozen and his voice trembled and asked, "You, where did you hear that name?" Her sister replied, "From you. You kept yelling his name in your sleep. Why? Who is this person?" If you're calling for this person's name in your sleep, you must be pretty close to them. Not to mention, your names are pretty similar. Now he was scratching his head and thinking everything went downhill since that day. The nightmare wouldn't end, and no matter how many times I use my QI circulation, I can't seem to make my body focus. He remembered the image of Jin Wai Kim, then he said in fear, why do I keep thinking about him? Going to bus, he's still thinking maybe I need to see a psychologist. He returned to his rented room. Twist the door handle. He sighed and walked into the house. Jin Tae-kyung glanced at his room. Once light shined in from outside and he saw Song Jin-ho struggling with his capsule. He stiffened and looked at the capsule. Song Jin-ho, wearing a flashlight on his head, turned to look at him.
Sung Jin-ho said, "Oh, you're here."
Jin Tae-kyung looking at him with hateful expression and noticed Screwdriver o his hand.
Sung Jin-ho said you came home pretty early today.
After seeing Screwdriver on Sung Jin-ho hand, Jin Tae-kyung angered. He threw away his bag and rushed to kick Song Jin-ho away. Jin Tae-kyung shouted, what are you doing with someone else's capsule, you idiot?
Sung Jin-ho with pain quickly to explain, hey. I haven't done anything to it. I just got back home as well.
Jin Tae-kyung angrily pointed at him and said, I told you not to come inside my room. Get yourself out of here.
Sung Jin-ho picked up the glasses and said, why are you getting this upset over a shitty capsule that doesn't even work? And you're the one who threw it away as well.
Jin Tae-kyung replied, in any case, don't you dare touch it. Then he checking every corner of the capsule saying that, are you okay? Were you scared? Again said to Sung Jin-ho with anger, if you touch it again, I'll kill you.
Sung Jin-ho pointed finger and loudly shouted, because of your screams at night, I've been having it pretty rough dealing with all the complaints from our neighbors. You have no right to treat me like this.
Jin Tae-kyung said, that has nothing to do with this situation. Get out.
Sung Jin-ho didn't stop and asked also, Jin Wai-kyung. Who the hell is this person?
Hearing this name, Jin Tae-kyung was startled and his whole body stiffened and he couldn't move.
Sung Jin-ho made goofy face and whispered, oh ho, you just flinched, right? Who is this person? Is she a cute girl? I guess you're dating someone, now that you're earning some money. What does she look like?
A few words this made his veins twitch in anger. He shouted, get out. After sleeping again in dreams, blur image appear. Blur image cleared in blue sky. The mountain hang sector army gradually appeared in one side. In the other side, Jin Wai-kyung with his army standing. The sound of drums rang out of again. Again the image blur. Then suddenly a voice shouted, the warriors, hearing the screams and quickly rushed up for attack. The soldiers from mountain hang sector also rushed forward. The two sides, one blue and one red, rushed at each other, no one willing to give way. He thought worriedly, the battle has begun. Suddenly the image becomes blurred again. After clear image to be seen on top of the mountain, the Jin family is standing. Jin Wai-kyung stared down. Behind him is the Great Elder. After watching Great Elder, he feared. He suddenly opened his eyes and woke up. He breathed heavily and said, this dream is getting more and more vivid. Then shouted, I really don't care about them anymore. He looked up and said, so what if that Murim world is an actual world itself? There's going to be over 2,000 Murim warriors fighting. What the hell do you want me to do about it? He looked at the capsule and said, there's going to be monsters who are far stronger than Joe Pill. Do you want me to die fighting those bastards? I only lived a month in that world. The life that I have to live is here in this world. He sighed. And said, besides, there's nothing Jin Wai-kyung can do now. Jin Tae-kyung hugged his knee sadly and thought Hyunk Moo Jin will probably deliver the message regarding the betrayal of the head elder, and that's something they'll have to figure out for themselves. In Murim, he remembering, the 4 people on my team, as at that time they kept calling young master squad leader. Then the people he helped save also appeared. In his mind, even Wai Pang also said, we trust the 3rd young master. And the last person is Jin Wai-kyung, he always told, please survive. He sadly remembered those people and cursed once, damn it. Then the phone next to him rang. It's Captain Choi. Phone called.
Captain Choi at a luxury villa area at coffee shop. He flipped through the pages of the report. Rustling sound echoed in the quiet space. Then he frowned and observed, a bit, after reading Jin Tae-kyung's report on everything, he asked, what do you think, Mr. Butler?
Butler Kim respectfully replied, he's clear. He's not an abnormal reawakened being, nor did he approach you with ulterior motives.
Young master asked, so you're telling me that all of his behaviors thus far have been a coincidence? He changed his side, didn't looking at Kim Butler, and said, do you know the probabilities of having another awakening?
Butler Kim replied, as far as I know it's about 1%.
Captain Choi pondered, and then seriously said, it's 1 out of 100 people. Not to mention, being a hunter is already an extremely low probability. Now, what do you think is the probability of a F-rank reawakened into a C-rank hunter? What about the possibilities of a C-rank hunter being able to solo clear a C-rank gate?
Butler Kim said, I don't think solo clearing is possible. He would at least have to be a B rank or.
Captain Choi quickly said, but Mr. Jin Tae-kyun is able to do it.
To hearing that, Kim Butler surprised.
Captain Choi pointed the Jin Tae-kyun reports and remembering the gates event, and said 5 D-rank gates and 15 C-rank gates. In total, 20 raids. All I did during those raids was observe him from afar. I didn't even have to help him.
To hearing that, the butler asked, then shall I look into him again?
Captain Choi said no. Nothing good will come out of that. I'm going to continue to observe his actions.
The butler smiled kindly and replied that the young master was finally planning to recruit him into the guild.
Captain Choi raised his eyebrows and looked at the butler and said, of course. But once he becomes suspicious, only then will I look into his background. If that doesn't happen, then I'll make him one of my men. No matter how long it takes.
Jin Tae-kyung entered the coffee shop and looking around. Reading the contract in which a down payment of $500,000 and a fixed salary of $50,000 with a 79% increase every year. He thinking after reading with surprised expression that I'll also have one of the highest insurance policies, a 40-floor studio, and my personal car as well. This is insane. The conditions are even better than last time. With this I'll be able to have it all. Not only will I have an amazing annual income, but I'll be able to attain one of the highest positions within society. I'll become a son and an older brother that my family can be proud of. Instead of being ignored by others, I'll become a figure everyone will be envious of. The things I dreamed about having as a hunter for 7 years is finally all coming.
Suddenly the voice calling him Jin Tae-kyung. Captain Choi said seriously, have you fixed your issues?
Jin Tae-kyung with confused expression he nodded, and replied, oh yes, that's pretty much it for now.
To hearing that, Captain Choi asked with comfort, so we won't be having any more problems then?
He still confused but happily said, of course.
Captain Choi's give him serious look to check his expression.
He still closed his eyes and smiled. He quickly opened the pen and says, I'll hurry and sign this now. In his heart he thought, let's finish this contract before Captain Choi gets second thoughts. He quickly sighed one by one all pages, the sound of a pen rang out, and Captain Choi calmly raised his cup of coffee to drink. After signing the contract, the last page left to sign it. Then he flipped to the last page to read. At this moment Jin Tae-kyung frowned seriously and thought, if I sign this, I can live my life in peace and comfort. He slowly put down the pen and thought to himself, I'll be able to end the shitty life that I used to live. He put the pen down and signed very decisively. Then thought, I can finally say goodbye to that Murim world. He shot the pen and broke it. He thought nervously and said, there goes my fountain pen as well. The atmosphere fell silent, the ink in the pen flowed all over the page.
Captain Choi was silent for a moment, then spoke up Jin Tae-kyung. Let me ask you again. With serious expression he said, the problems that we had last time, did you really resolve them?
Jin Tae-kyung put down the pen and replied, not yet.
Captain Choi said, if it's something that I can help you with, then feel free to.
He happily replied, thank you for your offer. But it's something I'll have to figure out on my own. And removed the ink on his face with his hand.
Captain Choi stood up for a moment, but then he sighed and said, I didn't think signing the contract would be this difficult. Captain Choi stroked his hair and said with a bitter smile, I didn't expect that I had been rejected 3 times. When would I ask for the 4th time?
Jin Tae-kyung said with serious expression, tomorrow at this place. Same time.
Captain Choi froze and asked, tomorrow? Only a day later. Giving him serious look he said, I do not like it when people joke like this.
He also replied with serious expression, I'm not messing around, sir. In his mind he thought, you have no idea how long a day can be. So he lifted his chair, stood up, and said, I'll see you tomorrow, sir. He determinedly thought, I'll do whatever it takes to survive, and came back here. Jin Tae-kyung looked at Captain Choi and said also.
Captain Choi looked at him with curiosity.
Jin Tae-kyung just pointed at himself and happily said, there's a chance that you might have to increase your conditions tomorrow. After speaking he firmly left.
Captain Choi looked at him with puzzled expression.
In the Murim world, a snowy mountain area, the wind whistles in the air. In the forest there are several figures running quickly and one person is carrying another person on his back. Their feet rushed along the winding forest road. The 2 people in front were breathing heavily but still did not stop. And Imhu Jun was carrying Jin Tae-kyung on his back, he was also out of breath. He gritted his teeth and thought to himself, I'm losing my mind. Recalling La Seo Guang's, the Mount Hang sword sector declaring war on us, infiltrating our backlines with spies from smaller factions, and then the betrayal from the head elder. All of this would drive anyone nuts. He glanced at Jin Tae-kyung behind him and gritted his teeth, thinking, why did this guy suddenly faint like that? Suddenly the person behind him let out a slow breath. He thought to himself, he's definitely breathing still, but it feels like he's on the verge of death. Imhu Jun remembered the injury that he suffered from Jo Pil is getting worse. He remembered what the doctor said. He had to rest for at least half a month before he could regain his health. How could I miss the battle that would decide the family's fate? Now the wound is still hidden and painful. Imhu Jun thought to himself, if I knew things would be like this I would have listened to the doctor. Looking at the blurry figures ahead, he thought to himself, we need to hurry and tell the main force about the betrayal of the head elder, but my body. Im-hoo-jun's eyes wanted to close more, he thought he can't continue. Suddenly a halo of light flashed in front of him, causing Im-hoo-jun to startle, his eyes open. Im-hoo-jun dreamed saw the angel saying, young human, you've done well. It's fine for you to rest now. Im-hoo-jun screamed in his heart, it's merciful angel. At that time he thought, yeah, I've done enough. A guy who's supposed to be our leader collapsed during a crucial moment. And the guys who are supposed to be my teammates aren't even offering to help me carry out leader. Im-hoo-jun's legs trembled and he wanted to collapse. He cursed in his heart, dazed, not knowing anymore. At that moment he felt Jin Tae-kyung breathed into him. Im-hoo-jun's ear causing him to wake up, his eyes were filled with tears and he happily called out, Captain?
Jin Tae-kyung smiled extremely generously. He showed his face and teasingly said, hello my darling,